USDA report showed U.S. cattle inventory at its lowest since 2016. From your vantage point, is this an accurate report?
Oh, yeah, and I think they're even tighter than that. I think they're tighter than where they were in 2014 when we saw all-time record high prices. I think our numbers are extremely tight, and it's the same reasons that we had back in 2012 to 2014 is because we've had such drought in our major production areas. So, if you have a drought in New York or something, it's not going to be a big one. Right. But if you have a drought in South Dakota and North Dakota like we did last summer, and then you have a drought in Central Texas and Arkansas like we have this summer, it was something else that went along with that. 1 to 2 years ago, Australia had one of their worst droughts ever, like 100-year drought. Well, their supplies were completely depleted. I mean, the cattle couldn't live out there. They had harvested almost all their cattle. Well, they raise a lot of cattle, but they don't feed a lot of those cattle. But it makes beef, and they sell it all over the world. Well, there was still a demand for that, and so we were filling that with cows. And so we're really short of cows right now, and I think it's a lot worse than what people even realize it is.
So we're short cows because we're exporting.
I think that's added to it. I think it's mostly because of drought in major production areas in this country. But there's been other things that's led to it. The demand for that cow meat's been really good. Your cow market's been very good. And it's not that people want their cows to all go to slaughter, but if they take a bred cow to the sale barn, none of their neighbors can afford to bid higher than the slaughter guy. And so
one thing I want to bring to light here is that a primary point of reference for what we're experiencing here in drought conditions in 2022 is the drought in 2011. And taking a look at these drought maps side by side, you can see the increased significance of the drought we're facing here in 2022. In fact, the number of cattle in 2011's drought-impacted states was 10,649,000 head. And the number of cattle in 2022's drought-impacted states is 20,388,000 head. This drought is covering almost the entirety of the Western Plains, where, as Corbett Wall mentioned, a majority of the beef in the United States is grown. But to pivot to 2 bits of information that you need to pay attention to if you're following the beef cattle market, and that is number 1, that USDA reports that beef cattle inventories have hit their lowest since 2016. Number 2 thing is that feedlot inventories have hit their highest in recorded history. What's happening is that breeding stock, heifers, which are young female cows that have not been bred yet, are being sent to feedlots alongside steers. These heifers are typically animals that are moved onto pasture production system, but for a myriad of reasons, these heifers are being sent to the food supply chain, as well as a bunch of cows coming off of these pastures that are drought-stricken. Beef Magazine says an increase in heifers in the feedlot mix means higher feedlot totals now, but fewer replacements to produce calves later. What this means is that if the Lord does restore rain to our ranges, these ranchers will once again have the natural resources to support larger herd sizes, and they will be out on the market looking for heifers or cows to increase their herd sizes and revenues, only to find that this replacement cattle is simply not there. It was moved through the food supply chain back in 2022. And as the law of supply and demand dictates, if demand outweighs supply, the supplier is going to get a better price for what he has to offer. Now, this is all a little bit muddled by beef imports and the dictatorship that the packers have over the beef industry at large. But regardless of these 2 things, we could be looking at a very small pocket of time in the near future where the live cattle market sees a surge. If you guys want more information on that, click on the link down below where I have a full 1-hour podcast with Corbett Wall of National Beef Wire's Feeder Flash. But the big question is, will live cattle prices go up enough to amend for the increased input costs? Or can we transition into systems that don't require those inputs? And here's where I'm going to give yet another plug. Quality Pasture by Allen Nation. In Chapter 8, page 117, it talks about building quality pasture in dry and arid regions. I'm going to be talking about it in the upcoming video, but the key in today's cattle market is reducing input costs, putting weight on cattle without grain, and building quality pasture is a way to do that. Buy the book at shopshepherdess.com, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in that next video, which I will put right here when it's available.